a second lieutenant wanted to use a vending machine but didn't have the proper change, and so he asked a private first class, "Do you have any change for $1?" And the enlisted man said, "Yeah, sure, man, I think I got you." But the officer said, Now, wait a minute, that's not how you dress an officer, is it?" And the private first class said, "Well, no, sir, it's not." "That's better," said the lieutenant. "Now, do you have change for $1?" "No, sir," came the reply. Today is a day that we celebrate Veterans Day, and I think that's an important day in our nation's history, a day when we think about those who've been willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. Now, most of us who served, I served in the Marine Corps, did not have to make the ultimate sacrifice. In fact, most of us didn't even see, live combat. The combat that I was in the bottom of a ship and things were going on above me, but I never really saw any enemy combatants in that way. So being a veteran does mean standing up, taking an oath to defend the country against enemies, foreign and domestic. It means being willing to lay it on the line. And most of us who served, well, we didn't spend our entire lives in the military either, but it was a time that changed us forever. And that transformation that takes place in the military is something I'm very grateful for. I was pretty lost as a young man, coming out of high school with a 2-point-something grade point average, very, very lost, didn't want to go to college, didn't really know what I wanted to do. If it hadn't been for the Marine Corps, I'm not sure where I would have landed. But they instilled in me some values like integrity and discipline, and I think most of all preparedness. When we think of military, some people think of violence and using force, but most military folks know enough about force to know that that's rarely the answer. We would prefer to find every other possible solution first before considering the possibility of using violence. However, we are prepared, and being prepared, a Boy Scout motto, but also something that is very important for the military, is something that I think veterans, they hang on to, and they recognize how important it is that we stay prepared for those things that we may have to face in this life. And we've been thrown a lot of things this year that we didn't feel prepared for. Most of us have made it. And we've been able to make it because we've been able to draw on reserves of strength, reserves of discipline, and reserves of the things that make us who we are. And it's caused us to dig down deep. But preparedness is really an important question in the Bible, too. Jesus tells stories about preparedness, and I wanted to share one of them with you today. Now, this comes on the heels of him talking about either the rapture or the second coming or the first coming of Christ, depending on what your perspective about where those verses go. It certainly is talking about a day of judgment, a day of a swift coming of a powerful figure who's going to change the world forever. Now, for most of us, we consider the possibility Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. We consider that possible. We don't know when it's going to happen. It may very well be that it happens for us on the day in which we pass into eternity. And so we still need to be prepared, although we just really don't know for what and for when. But see, that's the same as any regular soldier. Now, the generals may know what's coming up and what's really going to happen, but the regular soldiers, they just need to be prepared day in, day out. And so Jesus talks to us with this parable and tells us about the importance of being prepared. The kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." So we have a bunch of symbols in this story, and I think it's important to kind of unpack those symbols so we know what it is that he's driving at here. The bridesmaids, well, they would represent us. The regular Christian who is expectant about the coming of Christ, the coming of the bridegroom. That's who the bridegroom represents, is Christ. And this wonderful party that we're all going to, that's heaven. Now, I know sometimes we see heaven depicted strangely, as if we wear halos and sit on clouds and such like that, and that it's a very peaceful place. And perhaps, I'm sure it is peaceful, but a lot of the ways that the Bible describes heaven is more like a party, more a joyful place than a very quiet, deathly quiet kind of place. And so the coming of the bridegroom means that there's going to be a big party. And so these bridesmaids who are waiting, who represent us, are waiting for this great big party to happen. Something that's a once a year or once a decade kind of event, a big deal. And so they're waiting, and they have their lamps, and the lamp is part of the accoutrements of a bridesmaid in this sort of scenario. Just a part of the festivities. It's something that you carry, like throwing rice for us, or we're changing it now to birdseed and so on. But the lamp represents, I believe, the light of Christ inside of us. Now, in Revelation, we hear about lampstands, and then it tells us plainly in the text, lampstand means churches. And so a lampstand is something that you put several lamps on, or maybe just one, but a lampstand is something that holds several. And so a church holds several Christians in it, right? And then the lamp, well, you have the shell of the lamp, the thing that holds it together, and that would be our bodies. And then the light that comes from the lamp, well, that light represents Christ. The light of Christ is talked about in the Gospel of John and in several other places, that the light is Christ. And so a lamp would represent, a person and the light of Christ that shines through them. And a big deal in this particular parable is this thing about oil. The wise took flasks of oil with their lamps, and the foolish did not. And so, after all these hours of waiting, well, if you just had the normal amount of oil that you started with, well, it's gone now. But those who brought extra, well, they're ready. They're ready to go. Look, here's the bridegroom come out to meet him. Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet. And so it turns out that those who were wise, those who had the extra oil, are the ones who get to go to the big party. Those are the ones who get to go to heaven, because I'm sure that's what this wedding feast represents. It does that several other places in Scripture as well. Now, I find it a little bit mean-spirited on the part of the wise bridesmaids that they wouldn't share their oil. Probably there was enough, once if everybody just shared and rationed it. And why is the bridegroom so insistent that you have a lit lamp when you show up at the door? I mean, surely if they tried and did their best and they shared the oil, it would have been fine, right? Well, not according to this story. The way this story rolls out, if you don't have that oil on you, then you can't make it through to the end. And so I wonder what this oil represents. I think this oil represents what causes the fire to continue to burn. It's what feeds that fire. So what feeds that light inside of us, the Christ inside of us? Faith, love, perhaps, hope, those kinds of things. And so I think that the extra oil that these bridesmaids are carrying represents things like faith, hope, and love. And those things are what get you through, even if you have to wait a very long time. And that's something you can't quite share with somebody else. If someone doesn't love, you can't take some of your love and give it to them, and then now you both love half as much. It doesn't work quite like that. The same with hope. I mean, we can try to share our hope, we can try to share our love, we can try to share our faith, and we should, but ultimately, this is something you either have or you don't have, and no one can place it inside of you. And so I think the point of this mean-spiritedness amongst the bridesmaids, the reason they won't share their oil, is because there are just some things that can't be shared, and faith is one of them. You either have it or you don't. You have to make the decision about whether that faith is going to live and breathe in you, and whether it's going to feed that fire that is Christ inside you, or not. It's your decision. And so when he's talking about preparedness, he's talking about us having the faith, the hope, and the love that will continue to keep our lamp burning even if we have to wait a long time, even if we go through difficult times, even when it seems like everything around us is pitch dark. And surely we have run into some experiences very recently that make us feel like the world is very dark, that how are we ever going to get out of this mess? And I believe the answer to that is the light of Christ, and it is the oil, which is faith, hope, and love, that allows us to continue to be a light that shines all the brighter when the world around us is dark. Now, the church has a wonderful opportunity as we speak our gospel, our eternal truths, into a world that is so filled with chaos and fear and loss and grief. We have a wonderful opportunity to bring a new light that many have never seen or never taken seriously because there are all these other things distracting them. But now, perhaps they're ready to listen. Perhaps we can share our faith in a new way, a way that will help them to make a decision to invest in this oil. And then to allow that light of Christ to burn within them, and so that they also can get along with us and come into the kingdom. So he's talking about this experience of life as if it were a journey. And we're waiting for the bridegroom to come, and we're waiting to go in and to this great party. Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise replied, no, there will not be enough for you and for us. You'd better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves. And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the other bridesmaids came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he replied, truly I tell you, I do not know you. And those are some words that would make your heart sink. Maybe that's not really how parties ever did work, that, if you were late, you couldn't get in. And I know that there are some kinds of like examinations and so forth where you show up late, you can't come in. But the reason it's described this way isn't because that's the way weddings worked back then. It's because that's the way the kingdom of heaven works. If you're not ready, when it's your time to face the judgment, whether that means the rapture, the second coming of Christ, the day of judgment, or your own death, whatever that means, if you're not ready, then you're not getting in, and there's not a second chance. There's not, let's do this over again. We are either ready or we are not ready. I had a friend in my last church. She was over 90, and she could still preach a little bit. And one of her favorite lines was, don't wait until the 11th hour to get saved, because you might die at 10:30. And for us, we need to be ready. We need to be ready to take whatever steps it means to live out Christ's life in our lives today. And those opportunities, they may change for us day in and day out. We maybe have to be ready for something different today than any other day than we've ever faced. It is a part of what it means to be on that kind of journey, to face new experiences and new challenges. For us, that light that we need to shine needs to mean that we are loving other people, that we are loving other people in ways that they will feel it. Now, sometimes that means a word of encouragement or a prayer, and sometimes that means donating to a ministry or physically handing someone a lunch or something like that will help them to get through. There's a lot of ways in which our light needs to be touching other people, a lot of ways that our faith, hope, and love needs to be more than just an intellectual concept that we have gained because we've heard a lot from the Bible and been in church many times. It needs to be something that's alive, something that changes the lives around us, changes our life first, of course. You really can't be that helpful to others if your life is in total chaos all the time. You kind of get yourself straight first and not completely. I mean, we're all still broken in some ways, but we want to get that light of Christ shining in ourselves first, and then it begins to shine on all those others. And so we want to be ready. And that's the point of Jesus' message. And to be ready means to have that oil of faith, hope, and love, and to allow that light to shine through us. And then he finishes with these words, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." And it is true that we really do not know the day or the hour of our demise, or of the time when the world is going to change, or what opportunity that might come up today to make a difference in someone else's life. I mean, that could be just as important in the grand scheme of things, that we make the right decision to stop whatever it is we're doing and make a change that will help somebody else, to do what we can to make the world a better place. That's all we really can do. I mean, there are things happening in our nation, things happening in our world, they're totally out of our control, and that we may never be able to completely get a handle on, and it may never go back to what we thought of as normal. But we can change the world right around us. Just as much light as a lamp might be able to shine in the darkness, it doesn't go around the world. It just goes to those who can see you, just those few around you. So be ready in your little corner of the world to shine your light and to allow your faith, hope, and love to let that light burn brightly inside you. Amen.